In the heart of Idaho's Clearwater Valley, where autumn paints the landscape in rich amber and gold, one farmer's extraordinary act of compassion would challenge everything his community thought they knew about the delicate balance between man and nature. This is the remarkable true story of how an unexpected encounter on a frost-covered morning would not only test the limits of human kindness, but forever change the way an entire town viewed its relationship with the wild. The first frost of the season had settled over Sunrise Valley Farm, casting a silvery sheen across the sprawling fields that Robert "Rob" Mitchell had tended for over 2 decades. As a third-generation farmer and former Army veteran, Rob thought he had seen everything these 200 acres could throw at him. The pale October dawn was just beginning to break over the eastern horizon, painting the sky in delicate brushstrokes of pink and gold as he stepped out onto his front porch, coffee mug in hand, to begin what he thought would be just another ordinary day. The familiar sounds of his dairy farm were starting to stir, the distant lowing of cattle in the barn, the rustle of wind through the remaining corn stalks, and the eager barking of his 2 farm dogs, Max and Duke. But something was different this morning. The dogs' usual cheerful morning greeting had been replaced by intense, focused barking coming from the direction of the old grain silo. In his 20 years of farming, Rob had learned to read the different tones in his dogs' voices, and this one set off immediate alarm bells in his mind. Setting down his untouched coffee, Rob quickly pulled on his work boots and grabbed the flashlight he kept by the door. The morning air bit at his face as he strode across the frost-covered ground, his breath forming small clouds in the dim light. As he approached the silo, Max and Duke's barking grew more urgent, but they held their position instead of rushing to meet him, unusual behavior that only heightened his concern. Rounding the corner of the massive steel structure, Rob stopped, dead in his tracks. There, huddled against the base of the silo, was a sight that made his heart skip a beat. A full-grown black bear, clearly injured and in distress. The animal's dark fur was matted with blood along its side, and one of its front legs was held at an awkward angle that spoke of serious injury. But what struck Rob most wasn't the bear's size or its injuries. It was the look in its eyes, pain, fear, and something that seemed almost like a plea for help reflected in those dark eyes as they met his. Rob's first instinct was to retreat slowly and call wildlife services. Every farmer in Idaho knew the protocol for dealing with injured wildlife, especially predators. But as he began to step backward, something made him pause. The bear made no aggressive move, no threatening gesture. Instead, it let out a low moan that seemed to resonate with something deep in Rob's soul. His years in the army had taught him to read situations quickly, and everything about this moment told him this was different. Moving with the deliberate calm he'd learned in combat situations, Rob assessed the scene more carefully. The blood trail leading to the silo suggested the bear had dragged itself onto his property, likely during the night. From the way it was breathing and its severely dehydrated appearance, Rob estimated it had been injured at least a day ago. The nearest wildlife center was in Twin Falls, a good 5 hours away, and the local vet, Dr. James Cooper, had no experience with bears. Time seemed to stand still as Rob weighed his options. The responsible thing would be to call Officer David Martinez from Wildlife Conservation and let the authorities handle it. But something about the bear's condition told him it might not survive that long. The morning temperature was well below freezing, and the weather forecast had predicted heavy snow by afternoon, the first winter storm of the season. As he stood there, memories of his father's words echoed in his mind. Sometimes doing the right thing means doing the hard thing. Those words had guided him through difficult decisions in the army, and now they resonated with new meaning. With careful movements, Rob pulled out his phone and made a call. Not to wildlife services, but to Dr. Emily Chen, a wildlife veterinarian he'd met at last year's county fair. Her specialty was large predators, and though her clinic was in Twin Falls, he knew she occasionally did field work in the area. To his surprise, Dr. Chen answered despite the early hour. After listening to his description of the situation, she agreed the bear needed immediate medical attention, but warned him she couldn't reach his farm for at least 6 hours due to a schedule of emergency surgeries. That's when Rob made a decision. That would soon become the talk of River's Edge and beyond. With methodical precision born from years of military training, Rob began to formulate a plan. He first called his wife, Sarah, who was already at the school where she taught, explaining the situation and asking her to contact Mike Thompson, their neighboring farmer, to handle the dairy operations for the day. Then he went to work. The bear seemed to sense his intentions, remaining surprisingly still as Rob approached with blankets and supplies from the farm's medical kit. Using techniques he'd learned treating his cattle, he carefully cleaned the visible wounds he could reach. The injury appeared to be from some sort of farm equipment, possibly from one of the properties further up the valley. The bear's front leg showed signs of a deep laceration and possible fracture. As Rob worked, he kept up a steady stream of calm, quiet talk, the same way he did with injured farm animals. The bear's eyes never left him, and though it occasionally tensed from pain, it made no aggressive moves. This trust, however tentative, struck Rob as both miraculous and terrifying. Every movement had to be carefully considered, every action slow and deliberate. The next challenge was transportation. The bear would need to be moved to a more sheltered location before the storm hit, and eventually to Rob's truck for transport to Twin Falls. Using a combination of the farm's utility trailer, straw bales for cushioning, and carefully placed ropes, Rob created a makeshift transport system that would allow him to move the injured animal while keeping both it and himself safe. News travels fast in a small farming community, and by mid-morning, word had spread about the injured bear at Sunrise Valley Farm. Several neighbors arrived, offering help, though most thought Rob had lost his mind. Mike Thompson, who had known Rob for 20 years, tried to talk him out of what he saw as a dangerous, foolhardy plan. But Rob's military experience had taught him something about calculated risks, and this felt like one worth taking. The real challenge began when the promised storm arrived earlier than expected. Heavy snow started falling just as Rob was preparing to transport the bear to his covered truck. The temperature had dropped dramatically, and the wind whipped across the open farmland with fierce intensity. Every minute counted now. The bear's condition was deteriorating, and the roads would soon become treacherous. With the help of Mike, who despite his reservations couldn't leave his friend to handle this alone, Rob carefully maneuvered the makeshift stretcher carrying the bear into the back of his truck. They had created a secure enclosure using cattle, panels and padding, ensuring the bear couldn't move much during transport but could still breathe comfortably. The journey to Twin Falls became an odyssey through increasingly hazardous conditions. The snow fell in thick curtains, reducing visibility to mere feet at times. Rob's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as his truck crawled along the winding rural roads. Every few minutes, he could hear movement from the back, reminding him of his unusual passenger. The trip that normally took 5 hours stretched into 7 as he carefully navigated the treacherous conditions. Throughout the journey, Rob maintained phone contact with Dr. Chen, updating her on their progress and receiving guidance on monitoring the bear's condition during brief stops. Each time he checked on his passenger, those dark eyes met his with what he could only describe as patient trust, something he'd never expected to see from a wild predator. When they finally arrived at the wildlife clinic in Twin Falls, the story of the farmer who drove 7 hours through a snowstorm to save an injured bear had already preceded them. Dr. Chen had assembled a team ready to receive their unusual patient, and local news crews had gathered outside the clinic, drawn by the extraordinary tale. The bear's injuries proved to be extensive but treatable, a deep laceration, broken leg, and severe infection that would have certainly proved fatal without intervention. Dr. Chen later confided that the bear's unusual calmness during transport and treatment likely came from a combination of exhaustion, injury, and what she called an extraordinary connection with the farmer who had chosen to help rather than turn away. Over the next few weeks, as the bear recovered at the wildlife clinic, Rob made several trips to check on its progress. Each visit reinforced the unique bond that had formed during their shared journey. The bear, which Dr. Chen discovered was a young female around 4 years old, showed remarkable improvement under professional care. The story of Rob Mitchell and the injured bear spread far beyond River's Edge, catching the attention of national media and wildlife conservation groups. Many were touched by the farmer's compassion and courage, but Rob maintained he had simply done what needed to be done. Sometimes, he would say, kindness is just about showing up and doing the hard thing. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Soon, 2 months after that frost-covered morning, Rob stood with Dr. Chen and a team from Wildlife Services at the edge of protected forest land, watching as their fully recovered patient took her first steps back into the wild. The bear paused at the forest's edge, turning to look back one final time, and in that moment, Rob saw something he'd never forget: a wild creature's acknowledgement of the human who had chosen to help when it mattered most. The events of that October morning changed more than just one bear's fate. The town of River's Edge established new protocols for handling injured wildlife, working with Dr. Chen to create a rapid response network. Rob's farm became an unofficial waypoint for wildlife services, and his experience helped bridge the gap between the farming community and wildlife conservation efforts. Today, the story serves as a reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary acts of kindness come from simply choosing to help, even when it seems impossible or impractical. In the heart of Idaho's farming country, one man's decision to listen to his conscience instead of convention created ripples that continue to influence how an entire community views its relationship with the wild creatures that share their land. Want to see more incredible stories of hope, compassion, and the extraordinary connections between humans and animals? Hit that subscribe button and join our community of animal lovers making a difference in the world. Don't forget to like and share this video to spread the message that kindness knows no bounds. Together, we can inspire more people to take action when it matters most. Leave a comment below, sharing your thoughts or your own experiences with wildlife encounters. We'd love to hear your story. The winter wind howled across the snow-covered fields of Sunrise Valley Farm as Rob Mitchell stood in his barn, preparing for another day of uncertainty. 2 weeks had passed since his extraordinary journey through the snowstorm with an injured bear, and life in River's Edge had transformed in ways he never could have imagined. The morning light filtered through the barn's weathered boards, casting long shadows across the hay-strewn floor as he contemplated how a single decision had set in motion a chain of events that would reshape an entire community's relationship with the wilderness that surrounded them. Dr. Emily Chen's daily updates from the wildlife clinic in Twin Falls had become a source of both hope and anxiety. The injured bear, whom the clinic staff had begun calling Aurora after the northern lights that had danced across the sky on the night of her arrival, was fighting a severe infection that threatened to undo all their efforts. The broken leg had been set, but the deep lacerations had harbored bacteria that proved resistant to standard treatments. Each morning, Rob found himself checking his phone first thing, hoping for positive news about the creature that had somehow connected with him on that frost-covered morning. Sarah Mitchell noticed how the experience had changed her husband. The former Army veteran had always been known for his quiet strength, but now there was a new dimension to his character that emerged in unexpected ways. She watched as he spent evenings researching wildlife rehabilitation techniques, poring over veterinary texts borrowed from Dr. James Cooper, the local vet who had initially doubted Rob's decision to help the bear, but now found himself equally invested in Aurora's recovery. The story had spread beyond their small farming community, catching the attention of wildlife conservation groups across the state. Rob's phone rang constantly with calls from journalists and documentary filmmakers, all eager to tell the tale of the farmer who had risked everything to save a wild predator. But Rob deflected their attention, focusing instead on a more immediate concern: how to prevent similar incidents from happening in the future. Working with Mike Thompson and other neighboring farmers, Rob began mapping out the locations where wildlife typically crossed through their properties. They identified dangerous areas where animals might encounter farm equipment or become trapped, and started developing strategies to make their farms safer for both wildlife and humans. The project quickly grew beyond their initial expectations, drawing in experts from the state's Wildlife Management Department and conservation organizations. Dr. Chen made the long drive from Twin Falls twice that week, not to check on Aurora, who remained under careful observation at her clinic, but to work with the farmers on implementing new safety protocols. Her expertise, combined with the farmers' practical knowledge of the land, created a unique approach to wildlife management that would soon become a model for other agricultural communities facing similar challenges. The bitter Idaho winter showed no signs of relenting as December settled over the valley. Snow blanketed the fields, and the thermometer rarely climbed above freezing. Yet the cold weather brought an unexpected benefit. It slowed the pace of life enough for the community to truly process and discuss the events that had unfolded in their midst. The weekly farmers' market, moved indoors to the town hall for the winter season, became a forum for sharing ideas and concerns about wildlife conservation. Officer David Martinez from Wildlife Conservation found himself spending more time in River's Edge than ever before. What had started as routine follow-up visits to document the bear incident evolved into regular community meetings where farmers and conservation officers could openly discuss the challenges they faced. The old antagonism between agricultural interests and wildlife protection began to dissolve as both sides recognized the value in working together. Sarah's students at the local school took a keen interest in Aurora's story, leading her to develop a series of lessons about wildlife conservation and responsible farming practices. The children's enthusiasm spread to their parents, many of whom were farmers themselves, creating a ripple effect of awareness throughout the community. They began organizing field trips to local farms that had implemented wildlife-friendly practices, teaching the next generation about the delicate balance between agriculture and nature. Rob's daily routine expanded to include regular checks of the wildlife corridors they had identified. He installed motion sensor cameras at key points, collecting data that would help them understand animal movement patterns through their farmland. The footage revealed a surprising amount of wildlife activity, not just bears, but elk, moose, and even the occasional mountain lion passing through their properties. Each new discovery reinforced the importance of their efforts to create safer passages for these animals. The transformation of Sunrise Valley Farm continued through the winter months. Rob and Mike worked together to modify their fencing systems, creating designated wildlife crossings while still maintaining secure boundaries for their livestock. They experimented with different types of barriers and warning systems, sharing their findings with other farmers in the valley. The project became a community effort, with everyone contributing ideas and resources. Dr. Cooper, inspired by the collaboration between Dr. Chen and the local farmers, began expanding his own knowledge of wildlife veterinary care He converted part of his clinic into a triage center for injured wildlife, coordinating with Dr. Chen's facility in Twin Falls to provide immediate care before transport when necessary. The arrangement would prove invaluable in the months to come, as more farmers began reporting and helping injured wildlife instead of looking the other way. Late December brought the news they had all been waiting for. Aurora's infection had finally responded to treatment, and her recovery was progressing well. Dr. Chen's update included a video of the bear moving around in her enclosure, her movements still cautious, but growing stronger each day. The sight of Aurora's recovery brought tears to Rob's eyes, validating every difficult decision he had made that snowy October morning. The community's involvement in wildlife conservation attracted the attention of state officials and environmental organizations. Grants and resources began flowing into River's Edge, supporting the development of more comprehensive wildlife protection measures. The farmers' practical experience, combined with scientific expertise, created innovative solutions that could be implemented in other agricultural communities facing similar challenges. As January arrived, bringing even colder temperatures and deeper snow, the changes in River's Edge had become firmly established. The town's annual winter festival, usually focused solely on agricultural achievements, expanded to include wildlife education programs and conservation awards. Rob found himself reluctantly accepting recognition for his role in sparking this transformation, though he continued to insist that he had simply done what anyone would do in the same situation. Sarah noticed other changes in the community as well. The conversations at local diners and coffee shops had shifted from complaints about wildlife interference to discussions about coexistence and responsibility. Farmers, who had once viewed predators as nothing but threats to their livestock, now spoke about the importance of maintaining ecological balance. The change wasn't universal or complete, but it was significant and growing. The wildlife cameras captured an unexpected moment one frigid January morning. A mother bear and two cubs passing safely through one of the newly established wildlife corridors. The footage sparked excited discussions about whether the mother might be Aurora, though Dr. Chen cautioned that it was too soon for her to have cubs. Regardless, the images provided powerful validation of their efforts to create safer passages for wildlife through agricultural lands. Rob's daily rounds now included checking the wildlife warning systems they had installed throughout the valley. The network of sensors and cameras helped alert farmers to animal presence, reducing the likelihood of dangerous encounters. The system proved especially valuable during the winter months, when deep snow forced more wildlife to move through their properties in search of food. The transformation extended beyond physical changes to the landscape. Local schools incorporated wildlife education into their curriculum, teaching students about the importance of conservation and responsible land management. Sarah's classroom became a hub for this new approach, with students eagerly sharing stories of wildlife sightings and discussing ways to protect animals in their community. Dr. Chen's weekly updates about Aurora's recovery became community events, with farmers gathering at the local diner to hear the latest news. The bear's progress seemed to mirror the evolution of their own understanding about wildlife conservation. Each small victory in her recovery reinforced their commitment to creating a better balance between agricultural needs and wildlife protection. The winter storms that had once seemed like obstacles became opportunities for the community to work together. When heavy snow threatened to block wildlife corridors, farmers coordinated to keep paths clear. They shared equipment and manpower, turning what could have been individual burdens into collective achievements. The spirit of cooperation extended beyond wildlife issues, strengthening the community's bonds in unexpected ways. As February approached, Dr. Chen began discussions about Aurora's eventual release. the question of where to release her sparked intense debate within the community. Some argued for distant wilderness areas, while others advocated for protected lands closer to home where they could monitor her progress. The discussions revealed how deeply invested the community had become in not just Aurora's story, but in the larger issue of wildlife conservation. Rob found himself traveling to other farming communities in Idaho, sharing their experiences and the lessons they had learned. The story of River's Edge became a catalyst for change across the state, inspiring other agricultural communities to examine their own relationships with local wildlife. The model they had developed, combining practical farming experience with scientific expertise and community involvement, proved adaptable to various situations and environments. The winter light grew longer as February progressed, and with it came new signs of how profoundly River's Edge had changed. Farmers who had once competed fiercely for resources now collaborated on conservation projects. Properties that had been strictly separated by fences and distrust now shared wildlife, corridors and protection systems. The transformation went beyond physical changes to the land. It had reshaped the community's very identity. Dr. Chen's latest update brought both excitement and anxiety to the community. Aurora had recovered enough to begin pre-release conditioning, a process that would prepare her for return to the wild. The news prompted Rob to begin preparing for the next phase of their journey, ensuring that the systems they had put in place would continue to protect other wildlife long after Aurora's story had faded from public attention. The winter that he had started with an unexpected encounter between a farmer and an injured bear was drawing to a close, but its impact would be felt for generations to come. The changes in River's Edge served as a testament to what could be achieved when compassion and practical necessity found common ground. As Rob stood in his barn that February morning, watching the sunrise paint the snow-covered fields in shades of pink and gold, he reflected on how a single act of kindness had grown into a movement that transformed not just his community, but his understanding of humanity's role in protecting the wild creatures that share our world. Springtime emerged in the rolling hills of Idaho with quiet determination, much like the spirit that had transformed River's Edge over the past months. Dawn unveiled a world renewed at Sunrise Valley Farm, where Rob Mitchell stood watching the first rays of sunlight pierce through dissipating morning mist. The remnants of winter's chill lingered in the air, but new life stirred everywhere, in the tender green shoots pushing through thawing soil, in the chorus of returning birdsong, and in the fresh purpose that now guided this farming community's relationship with the wilderness surrounding them. A groundbreaking research initiative had selected River's Edge as its primary study site for investigating successful coexistence between agricultural communities and wildlife. Scientists from the University of Idaho established monitoring stations throughout the valley, their equipment blending seamlessly with the warning systems Rob and his neighbors had implemented during those challenging winter months. The researchers marveled at how organic solutions had emerged from necessity and compassion rather than academic theory. Dr. Emily Chen arrived one crisp morning with news that electrified the community. The Wildlife Rehabilitation Center had documented unprecedented success rates with their recovery protocols, largely thanks to the insights gained during Aurora's treatment. Their methods were being adopted by facilities across the Pacific Northwest, creating a network of rehabilitation centers better equipped to handle injured wildlife in agricultural areas. The spring planting season brought unique challenges to their wildlife management system. As farmers prepared their fields, animal activity increased along the established corridors. Mike Thompson spearheaded the development of a mobile notification system that allowed farmers to coordinate their activities, minimizing disruption to wildlife movement patterns while maintaining efficient agricultural operations. Sarah's classroom transformed into an impromptu wildlife observation center as her students documented the return of migratory species. Their daily records contributed to a larger study examining how agricultural landscapes could support biodiversity. The children's enthusiasm proved contagious, drawing parents and grandparents into discussions about conservation that would have seemed impossible mere months ago. Dr. James Cooper's veterinary practice evolved in unexpected ways. His expertise with both livestock and wildlife led to innovations in treatment protocols that benefited both. Local farmers found that healthier wildlife populations actually improved their agricultural outcomes as natural predator-prey relationships helped control pest species that threatened their crops. The technical solutions pioneered at River's Edge caught the attention of agricultural technology companies. Rob worked with engineers to refine their warning systems, making them more efficient and easier to implement in other farming communities. The collaboration resulted in patents that would generate funding for future conservation projects, while keeping the core technology accessible to small farmers. Officer David Martinez discovered that his role had evolved far beyond traditional wildlife management. He now spent much of his time coordinating with other jurisdictions, helping them adapt River's Edge's successful approaches to their own unique circumstances. The model they had developed proved remarkably adaptable, working equally well in various agricultural settings across the state. The wildlife cameras revealed fascinating patterns as spring progressed. Animals displayed increasing sophistication in their use of the designated corridors, teaching their young to navigate these safe passages through agricultural lands. The footage provided valuable insights into wildlife behavior and adaptation, contributing to scientific understanding of human-wildlife coexistence. Rob's expertise in practical wildlife conservation earned him an unexpected opportunity to influence agricultural policy at the state level. His testimony before the Idaho legislature helped secure funding for wildlife-friendly farming initiatives across the state. The success of River's Edge served as compelling evidence that conservation and agriculture could support rather than oppose each other. Sarah initiated a program connecting urban schools with their rural community. City students visited Sunrise Valley Farm to learn about wildlife conservation in agricultural settings, while her students shared their experiences through video conferences. These exchanges helped bridge the growing urban-rural divide, fostering understanding of both agricultural needs and wildlife protection. Dr. Chen's research team made remarkable discoveries about wildlife adaptation to agricultural landscapes. Their data showed that animals could learn to interpret human patterns and adjust their behavior accordingly, leading to fewer conflicts. These findings challenged traditional assumptions about wildlife behavior and suggested new approaches to conservation in human-modified landscapes. The spring rains brought both challenges and opportunities. While some wildlife corridors required reinforcement against erosion, the increased moisture supported the growth of native plants along these pathways. The vegetation provided natural cover for animals moving through agricultural areas while helping stabilize the soil, an unexpected benefit of their conservation efforts. Local indigenous communities contributed valuable traditional knowledge about wildlife patterns in the valley. Their insights helped refine corridor placement and design, incorporating centuries of observation into modern conservation practices. This collaboration led to more effective solutions while honoring the region's cultural heritage. Mike Thompson's latest innovation involved using weather forecasting data to predict and prepare for changes in wildlife movement patterns. The system helped farmers anticipate and adapt to shifting animal behaviors, reducing the likelihood of unexpected encounters. During agricultural operations, other farming communities began implementing similar predictive models, citing River's Edge's success. Rob's daily routine now included regular consultations with visiting researchers and conservation experts. Each interaction deepened his understanding of the complex relationship between agriculture and wildlife, while his practical experience helped ground academic theories in reality. The exchange of knowledge benefited both the scientific community and local farmers. The spring breeding season brought new considerations for their wildlife management system. The community worked together to identify and protect denning and nesting sites while maintaining agricultural productivity. Their success in balancing these competing needs drew attention from wildlife biologists studying human-wildlife conflict resolution. Sarah's students launched a citizen science project documenting wildlife activity throughout the valley. Their observations, combined with data from professional researchers, created a comprehensive picture of how animals utilize the agricultural landscape. The project engaged the entire community in wildlife conservation while contributing valuable data to scientific understanding. The warming weather brought increased tourist interest in River's Edge. Local businesses adapted to welcome visitors interested in their unique approach to wildlife conservation, creating new economic opportunities that supported both agriculture and environmental protection. The community's identity evolved to embrace its role as a pioneer in sustainable rural development. Dr. Cooper's veterinary clinic became a regional hub for wildlife rehabilitation training. Veterinarians from across the state visited to learn about treating injured wildlife while maintaining safe handling practices. The program helped build a network of rural veterinarians capable of supporting wildlife conservation efforts in their own communities. As spring progressed, the signs of their success multiplied. Wildlife moved more confidently through designated corridors. Agricultural productivity improved, and the community's connection to its natural heritage deepened. Each day brought new evidence that their approach to conservation was working, inspiring other farming communities to reconsider their relationship with wildlife. The evening light stretched long across Sunrise Valley Farm as Rob completed his final checks of the day. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities, but the foundation they had built would support whatever came next. The legacy of their work would influence generations to come, showing how compassion and innovation could bridge the gap between human needs and wildlife conservation. The transformation of River's Edge from a traditional farming community to a model of wildlife conservation continued to evolve, driven by the dedication of its residents and the power of their shared vision. Their story offered hope for other communities facing similar challenges, demonstrating that positive change was possible when people chose to work together toward a common goal. Summer descended upon Clearwater Valley with an intensity that transformed the landscape into a canvas of vibrant greens and golden hues. The morning dew on the fields of Sunrise Valley Farm sparkled like scattered diamonds as Rob Mitchell began his dawn patrol, checking the wildlife corridors that had become an integral part of his agricultural operation. The warmth of the June sun promised another scorching day, but the early hours still held the crisp freshness that reminded him of that life-changing October morning. The success of their wildlife conservation efforts had drawn unexpected attention to River's Edge. A team of documentary filmmakers had arrived from Seattle, capturing the story of how a small farming community had revolutionized its approach to wildlife interaction. Their cameras followed Rob as he demonstrated the sophisticated warning systems now protecting both animals and farmers, though he remained characteristically modest about his role in the transformation. Dr. Emily Chen's latest research project centered on studying the long-term effects of their wildlife corridors on local animal populations. The data from their tracking systems revealed fascinating patterns of animal movement through the agricultural areas, with species they hadn't seen in decades returning to the valley. The presence of wolves, in particular, sparked intense discussions about predator management that would have been impossible in the community's previous mindset. Sarah's summer education program had expanded beyond her classroom walls. Local children spent their vacation days participating in wildlife observation projects, learning to identify animal tracks and understanding the delicate balance between farming and conservation. The summer camp she organized brought together urban and rural kids, breaking down barriers and misconceptions about both farming and wildlife protection. The tracking data from Aurora's collar painted an encouraging picture of adaptation and survival. The bear had established a territory that occasionally overlapped with the wildlife corridors, but she showed no inclination to venture too close to human settlements. Her movements suggested she had found abundant natural food sources, validating the careful planning that had gone into selecting her release location. Mike Thompson's experimental farming techniques had yielded unexpected benefits. His modified crop rotation system, designed to minimize wildlife conflicts, had actually improved soil health and reduced water usage. Other farmers in the valley began adopting his methods, creating a patchwork of wildlife-friendly agricultural practices that stretched across the landscape. The summer heat brought new challenges to their conservation efforts. Water sources became critical points of contact between wildlife and farming operations. Rob worked with hydrologists to develop innovative irrigation systems that provided separate access points for wildlife, reducing potential conflicts during the dry season. The project required significant investment, but local businesses, impressed by the community's commitment to conservation, stepped forward with funding support. Dr. James Cooper's veterinary clinic became a regional hub for wildlife rehabilitation. During the summer months, young animals orphaned by accidents or natural causes found temporary shelter in the facility's new wildlife wing. The local community rallied around these rehabilitation efforts, with farmers offering space on their lands for soft releases once the animals were ready to return to the wild. Officer David Martinez found his role evolving as summer progressed. The success of River's Edge's wildlife program had caught the attention of state officials, who now sought his expertise in developing similar initiatives across Idaho. His weekly schedule included training sessions for other conservation officers, teaching them the unique approach that had worked so well in their valley. The wildlife cameras captured an extraordinary moment one sultry summer evening. A female bear with 2 cubs using one of the wildlife corridors. The footage caused excitement throughout the community as experts analyzed the bear's markings and behavior patterns. Though it wasn't Aurora, the scene represented everything they had worked to achieve: wild animals safely navigating through agricultural areas. Local restaurants and businesses adapted to the influx of eco-tourists drawn by River's Edge's reputation for wildlife conservation. The town's farmers' market expanded to include educational displays about sustainable farming practices and wildlife protection. Visitors from across the country came to learn how a small farming community had managed to bridge the gap between agricultural necessity and wildlife conservation. Rob's expertise in wildlife-friendly farming practices earned him invitations to speak at agricultural conferences and universities. Though public speaking had never been his strength, he found himself sharing their story with audiences eager to learn from River's Edge's experience. Each presentation emphasized the practical aspects of their approach, showing other farming communities that conservation and agriculture could coexist profitably. The summer heat wave tested the resilience of their wildlife protection systems. Water sources became increasingly critical, and the community worked together to maintain and protect natural springs and streams that served both wildlife and agricultural needs. Their efforts during this challenging period demonstrated the strength of the partnerships they had built between farmers and conservationists. Sarah's students turned their summer wildlife observations into a comprehensive guide to local fauna, combining scientific data with practical tips for farming in harmony with wild animals. The project caught the attention of state education officials, who began developing similar programs for other rural schools. The children's enthusiasm for wildlife conservation spread to their families, creating a generational shift in attitudes toward wild animals. Dr. Chen's research team made a fascinating discovery during their summer surveys. The wildlife corridors had not only provided safe passage for large animals, but had also created new habitats for smaller species. The increased biodiversity strengthened the local ecosystem, naturally controlling agricultural pests and reducing the need for chemical interventions. The summer months brought an unexpected challenge when a drought threatened both farming operations and wildlife. The community's response demonstrated how deeply their conservation ethic had taken root. Farmers voluntarily reduced their water usage, sharing resources to ensure that both crops and wildlife could survive the dry spell. Their coordinated effort became a case study in collaborative resource management during environmental stress. As summer progressed, Rob noticed subtle changes in the way wildlife moved through their property. Animals showed increasing confidence in using the designated corridors, and instances of conflict between farming operations and wild creatures dropped significantly. The observation platforms they had built became popular spots for wildlife photography, attracting nature enthusiasts who contributed to the local economy. Mike Thompson's latest innovation involved using solar-powered sensors to monitor wildlife movement patterns and adjust farming activities accordingly. The technology allowed farmers to schedule their work around peak wildlife activity periods, reducing the likelihood of dangerous encounters. The system's success attracted attention from agricultural technology companies interested in developing similar solutions for other regions. The documentary filmmakers captured a powerful moment when a young moose, injured by an encounter with loose barbed wire, received immediate attention thanks to their wildlife response network. Dr. Cooper's team treated the animal on site, demonstrating the effectiveness of their mobile veterinary unit. The incident highlighted how their preparation and coordination had created a safety net for wildlife moving through agricultural areas. Local artists found inspiration in the community's transformation, creating works that celebrated the harmony between farming and wildlife conservation. A summer art festival in River's Edge featured these pieces alongside educational displays about wildlife protection, drawing visitors from across the state. The event became a symbol of how cultural attitudes toward wildlife had evolved in their farming community. Rob's daily rounds now included checking a network of wildlife water stations strategically placed throughout the valley. These simple innovations, combined with natural water sources, created a lifeline for wild animals during the hot summer months. The project demonstrated how small changes in farming infrastructure could have significant impacts on wildlife survival. As July turned to August, the community celebrated the first anniversary of their wildlife conservation program with a festival that brought together farmers, conservationists, and wildlife enthusiasts. The event featured demonstrations of wildlife-friendly farming techniques, educational workshops, and guided tours of the corridor system. Visitors left with practical ideas for implementing similar programs in their own communities. The summer's heat began to wane as August drew to a close, but the community's commitment to wildlife conservation remained strong. Each successful Interaction between farming operations and wild animals reinforced their belief in the possibility of coexistence. The systems they had built, tested by summer's challenges, emerged stronger and more efficient. Rob's evening walks became opportunities for reflection on how far they had come. The sight of deer safely grazing along the corridor edges, the sound of wolves howling in the distance, and the occasional glimpse of bears moving through their designated pathways all testified to the success of their efforts. The farming community had not just adapted to wildlife presence, they had created a model for agricultural and wildlife integration that would influence generations to come. The evening light painted the valley in warm, golden tones as Rob completed his final checks of the day. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities, but the foundation they had built would support whatever came next. The transformation of River's Edge from a traditional farming community to a pioneer in wildlife conservation had become a testament to the power of compassion, innovation, and collective action in creating lasting change. September painted Clearwater Valley in rich autumn colors, transforming the landscape into a tapestry of crimson and gold. The crisp morning air carried hints of wood smoke as Rob Mitchell surveyed the harvest preparations at Sunrise Valley Farm. Leaves danced across the wildlife corridors they had created, nature adding its own touch to their careful design. The changing season brought new rhythms to their delicate balance between agriculture and wildlife conservation. A prestigious environmental foundation had selected River's Edge for a groundbreaking study on sustainable agriculture and wildlife coexistence. Researchers from across the country descended upon their small farming community, setting up monitoring stations and conducting detailed analyses of their wildlife protection systems. Rob found himself sharing insights with acclaimed scientists who were amazed by the practical elegance of their solutions. Dr. Emily Chen's latest visit brought unexpected news about Aurora's territory. The bear had established a den near the northern edge of their wildlife corridor network, suggesting she might winter close to the community that had saved her. The tracking data revealed sophisticated adaptation patterns, showing how she had learned to utilize the protected pathways while maintaining a respectful distance from human activities. The autumn harvest season presented unique challenges to their wildlife management system. Increased farming activity coincided with animals preparing for winter, creating potential conflict points. Mike Thompson developed an innovative scheduling system that coordinated harvest operations around wildlife movement patterns, reducing stress on both farmers and animals during this crucial period. Sarah's classroom became a hub for studying seasonal wildlife behavior. Her students tracked how different species responded to the changing weather, documenting migration patterns and preparation for winter. The project expanded into a community-wide citizen science initiative, with farmers and residents contributing observations that helped refine their wildlife protection strategies. Dr. James Cooper's veterinary clinic reported fascinating changes in local wildlife health patterns. Animals using their protected corridors showed lower stress levels and better physical condition than those in areas without similar conservation measures. The findings caught the attention of veterinary schools nationwide, leading to new research. Partnerships focused on wildlife welfare in agricultural settings. The fall colors brought photographers and nature enthusiasts to River's Edge, eager to document the successful integration of wildlife conservation and farming practices. Local businesses adapted to welcome these visitors, creating ecotourism, opportunities that supplemented traditional agricultural income. The town's identity evolved to embrace its role as a model for sustainable rural development. Officer David Martinez organized a series of workshops sharing River's Edge's experiences with other farming communities facing similar wildlife challenges. The sessions focused on practical implementation strategies, helping other regions adapt their methods to local conditions. The interest exceeded all expectations, with representatives from 5 states attending the inaugural workshop. The wildlife cameras captured extraordinary footage of animal behavior during the seasonal transition. Young bears learned corridor navigation from their mothers. Wolves moved their pups through protected pathways, and elk herds utilized designated crossing points during their autumn migration. Each observation provided valuable data for improving their conservation efforts. Rob's expertise in wildlife-friendly farming practices earned him an invitation to consult on a national agricultural policy review. His practical experience proved invaluable in discussions about balancing conservation requirements with agricultural productivity. The resulting recommendations would influence farming practices across the country, spreading River's Edge's innovative approaches to a national audience. The autumn rains brought new challenges to their wildlife protection systems. Drainage patterns shifted with the changing weather, requiring quick adaptations to maintain safe passage for animals. The community's response demonstrated how deeply ingrained their conservation ethic had become, with farmers working together to implement solutions before serious problems developed. Sarah's students embarked on an ambitious project documenting the oral history of wildlife in Clearwater Valley. They interviewed elderly residents about animal encounters from decades past, creating a valuable record of ecological changes in their region. The project revealed how some species had returned to areas they had abandoned generations ago, thanks to the community's conservation efforts. Local indigenous leaders visited River's Edge to share traditional knowledge about wildlife behavior and sustainable land management. Their insights complemented modern scientific approaches, creating a richer understanding of how humans could coexist with wild animals. The collaboration led to new perspectives on conservation that honored both agricultural needs and ancient wisdom. The Autumn Harvest Festival took on new significance as River's Edge celebrated its transformation into a wildlife-friendly farming community. Traditional agricultural displays stood alongside educational exhibits about conservation, symbolizing the integration of these once competing interests. Visitors from across the region came to learn how they had achieved this delicate balance. Dr. Chen's research team made breakthrough discoveries about wildlife adaptation to agricultural landscapes. The data showed animals developing sophisticated understanding of human patterns, adjusting their movements to avoid conflict while utilizing protected corridors. These findings challenged conventional wisdom about wildlife behavior near human settlements. The cooling weather brought increased activity in their wildlife corridors as animals prepared for winter. Rob worked with neighboring farmers to ensure food sources remained accessible along protected pathways, creating safe transition zones between wilderness and agricultural areas. Their efforts helped reduce pressure on both wildlife and farming operations during this critical period. Mike Thompson's latest innovation involved using thermal imaging to monitor nighttime wildlife movement, helping farmers plan early morning activities to minimize animal encounters. The technology proved especially valuable during harvest season, when long working hours increased the likelihood of wildlife interactions. Other farming communities began adopting similar systems, citing River's Edge's success. The documentary about their community's transformation premiered at a regional film festival, earning acclaim for its portrayal of rural innovation and environmental stewardship. The film captured the spirit of cooperation that had made their success possible, showing how individual actions could spark lasting change in seemingly intractable conflicts. Local artists organized an exhibition celebrating the relationship between farming and wildlife conservation. Their works captured the beauty of animals, moving safely through agricultural landscapes, telling the story of River's Edge's transformation through various artistic mediums. The show attracted visitors from urban areas, building bridges between rural and city perspectives on conservation. Rob's morning rounds took on new significance as autumn progressed. Each day brought fresh evidence of wildlife adapting to their protected pathways. Tracks in morning frost, glimpses of animals moving confidently through designated corridors, signs of successful coexistence between farms and wild creatures. These quiet observations reinforce the value of their continued efforts. The fall migration season tested their wildlife management systems as larger numbers of animals moved through their region. The networks they had established proved resilient, handling increased activity while maintaining safety for both wildlife and farming operations. Their success during this challenging period validated their approach to conservation. Sarah's educational program expanded to include practical training in wildlife-friendly farming techniques. High school students learned to operate sophisticated monitoring equipment, analyze animal behavior patterns, and implement conservation measures on working farms. The program created new career opportunities in rural areas, combining agricultural expertise with wildlife management skills. Dr. Cooper's veterinary practice became a teaching center for rural wildlife medicine, hosting veterinary students interested in combining livestock care with wildlife rehabilitation. The program highlighted the unique challenges and opportunities of practicing veterinary medicine in areas where domestic and wild animals shared territory. The autumn winds brought change to River's Edge, but the community's commitment to wildlife conservation remained steadfast. Each successful interaction between farming operations and wild animals reinforced their belief in the possibility of coexistence. The systems they had built, tested by seasonal challenges, continued to evolve and improve. As October's cool evenings settled over the valley, Rob reflected on the transformation he had witnessed. The farming community had not just adapted to wildlife presence, they had created a new model for rural development that honored both agricultural traditions and environmental stewardship. Their story offered hope for other communities facing similar challenges. The evening light cast long shadows across Sunrise Valley Farm as Rob completed his final checks of the day. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities, but the foundation they had built would support whatever came next. The legacy of their work would influence generations to come, showing how compassion and innovation could bridge the gap between human needs and wildlife conservation. The first hints of winter whispered through Clearwater Valley as November's chill settled over River's Edge. Frost etched delicate patterns across the windows of Sunrise Valley Farm's main house, while Rob Mitchell reviewed the latest wildlife movement data on his tablet. The season's transition brought new urgency to their conservation efforts as animals prepared for the harsh Idaho winter ahead. An international conservation summit had chosen River's Edge as its case study for successful human-wildlife coexistence. Representatives from agricultural communities across the globe walked the farm's corridors, studying how this small Idaho town had revolutionized the relationship between farming and wildlife protection. Rob found himself explaining their methods to delegates from as far away as Norway and New Zealand, each eager to adapt these innovations to their own regions. Dr. Emily Chen's research team made a groundbreaking discovery about wildlife adaptation patterns in agricultural settings. Their study of animal behavior around River's Edge revealed sophisticated decision-making processes in how wildlife utilized the protected corridors. The findings challenged traditional assumptions about animal intelligence and adaptation capabilities, suggesting that wild creatures could learn and pass on knowledge about safe human-adjacent pathways. The approaching winter demanded modifications to their wildlife protection systems. Mike Thompson introduced thermal-lined passage points where animals could find shelter during severe weather without endangering themselves or farming operations. The innovation drew praise from wildlife experts who recognized the importance of providing safe winter havens in agricultural areas. Sarah's classroom became a hub for monitoring seasonal wildlife preparation. Her students tracked how different species readied themselves for winter, documenting changes in behavior patterns and movement frequencies. The project expanded into a regional educational initiative, with schools across Idaho adopting similar observation programs that connected children with their local wildlife. Dr. James Cooper's veterinary clinic established a winter wildlife emergency response unit equipped to handle cold weather injuries and exposure cases. The mobile facility could reach remote areas of the valley quickly, providing critical care during the challenging winter months. Other rural communities began developing similar emergency response systems, recognizing the value of rapid intervention in wildlife emergencies. The late autumn brought unexpected benefits to their conservation efforts. As natural food sources became scarcer, animals showed remarkable adaptability in using the designated corridors to move between protected areas. The network of safe passages proved especially crucial for younger animals experiencing their first winter migration. Officer David Martinez coordinated with state wildlife officials to develop new protocols for winter wildlife management in agricultural areas. The guidelines, based on River's Edge's successful model, emphasized proactive measures that prevented conflicts rather than reactive responses to problems. The approach garnered attention from wildlife management agencies nationwide. The sophisticated camera system captured fascinating footage of nighttime animal activity. Infrared sensors revealed complex social interactions as different species navigated the shared corridors, demonstrating unexpected cooperation between wildlife during resource-scarce periods. The observations provided valuable insights into winter wildlife behavior patterns. Rob's expertise in weather-resistant wildlife protection systems earned recognition from agricultural engineering societies. His practical solutions to winter challenges, developed through necessity and observation, offered new perspectives on integrating conservation measures into working farms. The resulting publications helped spread these innovations to other farming communities facing similar seasonal challenges. The preparation for winter brought the community together in unexpected ways. Farmers coordinated their final harvest, activities to minimize disruption to wildlife preparing for hibernation or migration. The collective effort demonstrated how deeply the conservation ethic had become embedded in River's Edge's agricultural practices. Sarah initiated a project documenting traditional winter wildlife knowledge. Her students interviewed longtime residents and Native American elders about historical wildlife patterns in the valley, creating a valuable record of ecological changes over generations. The project revealed how modern conservation efforts aligned with traditional understanding of animal behavior. Local businesses adapted their operations to support winter wildlife protection. The hardware store stocked specialized materials for maintaining wildlife corridors during severe weather, while restaurants sourced ingredients from farms certified in wildlife-friendly practices. The economic benefits of ecotourism continued, even as temperatures dropped, with visitors drawn to winter wildlife observation opportunities. Dr. Chen's latest visit brought important news about Aurora's adaptation to winter conditions. The bear had selected a denning site that utilized natural terrain features while remaining within reach of the protected corridor network. Her successful integration into the wild population validated the community's approach to wildlife rehabilitation and release. The wildlife warning system underwent significant upgrades to handle winter conditions, Solar-powered sensors received cold weather modifications, ensuring reliable operation during the darkest months. The improvements resulted from collaboration between local farmers and technology experts, combining practical experience with technical innovation. Mike Thompson's experiments with winter cover crops yielded unexpected benefits for wildlife protection. The plants provided additional food sources for herbivorous species while creating natural windbreaks along wildlife corridors. Other farmers began incorporating similar plantings into their winter field management strategies. Rob's daily rounds took on new significance as winter approached. Each morning brought fresh evidence of wildlife activity, tracks in the frost, worn paths. Through remaining vegetation, signs of animals preparing for the cold months ahead. These observations helped refine their understanding of how wildlife adapted to seasonal changes in agricultural landscapes. The community's winter preparation efforts extended beyond physical infrastructure. Educational programs emphasized safe wildlife observation practices during winter months when animals might seek shelter near human structures. The initiative helped prevent negative encounters while fostering appreciation for wildlife's winter survival strategies. Dr. Cooper's veterinary team developed new treatments for cold weather wildlife injuries. Their protocols, refined through practical experience, filled crucial gaps in rural veterinary medicine. The clinic became a training center for veterinarians seeking expertise in winter wildlife care. As December approached, River's Edge hosted a winter wildlife management workshop for other farming communities. The event combined classroom sessions with field observations, allowing participants to see firsthand how agricultural operations and wildlife protection could coexist during challenging winter months. The evening light faded earlier each day, but the community's commitment to wildlife conservation remained strong. Each successful interaction between farming operations and wild animals reinforced their belief in the possibility of coexistence. The systems they had built, tested by increasingly severe weather, continued to protect both agricultural interests and wildlife needs. Rob's evening walk along the property boundary revealed fresh evidence of wildlife using their protected corridors. Even as temperatures dropped and daylight diminished, animals moved confidently through designated pathways, demonstrating the effectiveness of their conservation measures. The sight reinforced his conviction that their efforts would endure through the challenging months ahead. A documentary crew from a major nature network arrived to film winter wildlife activity around River's Edge. Their footage captured the delicate balance achieved between agricultural operations and wildlife protection, showing how human innovation could support natural processes rather than disrupt them. Sarah's students launched a winter wildlife monitoring program that connected them with similar projects across the Northern Hemisphere. Their observations contributed to a global study of wildlife adaptation to agricultural landscapes in various winter conditions. The international collaboration brought new perspectives to their local conservation efforts. The transition into winter tested the resilience of their wildlife protection systems, but each challenge prompted innovative solutions. The community's response demonstrated how deeply their commitment to conservation had taken root, transcending individual interests to serve a larger purpose. As the first serious snowfall blanketed Clearwater Valley, Rob reflected on the transformation he had witnessed. The farming community had not just adapted to wildlife presence. They had created a new model for rural development that honored both agricultural traditions and environmental stewardship. Their story offered hope for other communities facing similar challenges. The evening stillness settled over Sunrise Valley. Farmer's Rob completed his final checks of the day. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities, but the foundation they had built would support whatever came next. The legacy of their work would influence generations to come, showing how compassion and innovation could bridge the gap between human needs and wildlife conservation. January's fierce grip held Clearwater Valley in a crystalline embrace, transforming Sunrise Valley Farm into a pristine winterscape. Rob Mitchell's breath frosted in the pre-dawn air as he checked the reinforced wildlife corridors, their boundaries now marked by towering snowdrifts. The deep winter silence carried its own music, the soft crunch of snow beneath his boots, the distant call of winter birds, and the whisper of wind through ice-laden branches. A prestigious environmental foundation had awarded River's Edge an unprecedented grant to expand their wildlife protection innovations. The funding would support the development of advanced monitoring systems designed specifically for extreme winter conditions. Scientists and engineers gathered in the transformed community center, their technical discussions mixing with the practical wisdom of local farmers who had learned to read winter's subtle signs. Dr. Emily Chen's latest research revealed intriguing patterns in wildlife behavior during severe weather. Animals showed remarkable adaptability in using the heated shelters integrated into the corridor network, timing their movements to coincide with the warmest parts of the day. This natural synchronization with human-provided infrastructure challenged previous assumptions about wildlife adaptation capabilities. The depths of winter brought unique challenges to their conservation efforts. Mike Thompson pioneered a solar-powered snow removal system for critical wildlife passages, ensuring animals could move safely even after heavy snowfall. The innovation caught the attention of conservation managers in other snow-prone regions, who recognized its potential for reducing winter wildlife casualties. Sarah's classroom transformed into a winter wildlife research station, with students monitoring temperature impacts on animal movement patterns. Their observations contributed to a broader study of climate change effects on wildlife behavior in agricultural areas. The project connected them with young researchers across the globe, sharing insights about wildlife adaptation in various winter conditions. Dr. James Cooper's veterinary clinic established a new protocol for treating cold weather wildlife injuries. His team developed specialized rehabilitation techniques that accounted for the unique challenges of winter recovery. The method spread to other rural veterinary practices, improving survival rates for wildlife requiring winter medical intervention. The sophisticated camera network captured extraordinary footage of nighttime animal activity during the coldest months. Infrared imaging revealed complex social behaviors as different species shared the protected corridors, demonstrating unexpected cooperation in harsh conditions. These observations provided valuable insights into winter survival strategies among diverse wildlife populations. Rob's expertise in extreme weather wildlife protection earned him invitations to consult with national parks facing similar challenges. His practical solutions, born from necessity and refined through experience, offered fresh perspectives on managing human-wildlife interactions during severe weather events. The resulting collaborations led to improvements in winter wildlife management across the country. The heart of winter tested the community's resolve, but strengthened their commitment to wildlife protection. Farmers coordinated their essential winter activities to minimize disruption to animal movement patterns while maintaining crucial agricultural operations. This delicate balance demonstrated the evolution of their understanding about coexistence with wildlife. Sarah initiated an oral history project documenting winter wildlife encounters throughout the valley's history. Elder community members shared stories of how animal behavior had changed over generations, providing valuable context for current conservation efforts. These narratives revealed patterns that helped refine their approach to winter wildlife protection. Local businesses evolved to support year-round wildlife conservation initiatives. The hardware store developed a specialized department for winter wildlife protection equipment, while restaurants featured educational displays about seasonal wildlife. Adaptation. The economic benefits of ecological tourism continued even in the coldest months, as visitors arrived to observe winter wildlife behavior. Dr. Chen's monitoring of Aurora's first full winter in the wild yielded fascinating data about bear adaptation to agricultural landscapes. The bear's denning site selection and periodic winter activity patterns provided insights that improved their understanding of large predator behavior near farming communities. Her successful winter survival validated their comprehensive approach to wildlife rehabilitation. The winter warning system incorporated new features designed for extreme weather conditions. Advanced sensors detected changes in animal behavior that might indicate distress, allowing rapid response to wildlife emergencies. The technology resulted from collaboration between local expertise and international research teams, combining practical knowledge with scientific innovation. Mike Thompson's experiments with winter habitat enhancement produced unexpected benefits. Strategic placement of wind barriers and thermal shelter zones created micro-environments that supported wildlife during the harshest weather. Other farmers adopted these techniques, expanding the network of winter wildlife support across the agricultural landscape. Rob's daily inspections revealed the effectiveness of their winter adaptations. Animal tracks in the snow showed consistent use of protected pathways, while thermal imaging confirmed regular activity in the heated shelter zones. These observations helped refine their understanding of wildlife needs during extreme weather conditions. The community's winter wildlife program expanded to include emergency response training. Volunteers learned to handle various winter wildlife scenarios, from treating cold injuries to managing seasonal migrations. The initiative created a model for other rural communities dealing with similar challenges. Dr. Cooper's veterinary team developed specialized treatments for winter-specific wildlife conditions. Their protocols addressed the unique challenges of rehabilitation during cold weather, filling crucial gaps in rural veterinary medicine. The clinic became a training center for veterinarians seeking expertise in winter wildlife care. January's intense cold brought new species to their protected corridors as animals sought refuge from extreme conditions. The community adjusted their conservation strategies to accommodate these temporary visitors, demonstrating the flexibility of their wildlife management approach. Each successful adaptation strengthened their commitment to protecting all wildlife, regardless of seasonal patterns. A team of international researchers arrived to study River's Edge's winter wildlife protection systems. Their analysis highlighted the innovative aspects of the community's approach, particularly the integration of traditional farming practices with modern conservation techniques. The resulting publication brought global attention to their achievements in sustainable agriculture. Sarah's students launched a citizen science project tracking winter wildlife movement patterns. Their observations, combined with data from professional researchers, created a comprehensive picture of animal behavior during extreme weather. The project engaged the entire community while contributing valuable information to scientific understanding. The winter months revealed unexpected benefits of their wildlife protection efforts. Natural predator-prey relationships helped control pest populations that might otherwise damage stored crops, while the presence of diverse wildlife enhanced soil health through various ecological interactions. These discoveries reinforce the value of maintaining wildlife populations in agricultural areas. Rob's evening rounds took on new significance as winter deepened. Each inspection revealed fresh signs of wildlife adaptation. Tracks showing efficient use of protected pathways, evidence of successful foraging in designated areas, and indications of animals teaching their young to navigate the human-modified Landscape. These observations confirmed the long-term viability of their conservation approach. The severe weather tested the resilience of their wildlife protection systems, but also showcased their effectiveness. Animals moved confidently through designated corridors despite harsh conditions, utilizing the network of shelters and protected passages. Each successful interaction between farming operations and wildlife reinforced their conviction that coexistence was possible. As February approached, River's Edge hosted a winter wildlife management symposium for other farming communities. The event combined theoretical knowledge with practical demonstrations, allowing participants to observe how agricultural operations and wildlife protection could coexist during extreme weather. The success of their model inspired other communities to adopt similar approaches. The evening light faded early, but the community's commitment to wildlife conservation remained strong. Each day brought new evidence of their success, from tracks in the snow to thermal images of animals using heated shelters. The systems they had built continued to protect both agricultural interests and wildlife needs, even in the harshest conditions. Rob's final check of the day revealed fresh signs of wildlife activity along the protected corridors. Even in the deepest cold, animals moved confidently through their designated pathways, demonstrating the effectiveness of their conservation measures. The sight reinforced his belief that their efforts would endure through whatever challenges lay ahead. The transformation of River's Edge from a traditional farming community to a model of winter wildlife conservation continued to evolve, driven by necessity and innovation. Their story offered hope to other communities facing similar challenges, showing how human ingenuity and compassion could create sustainable solutions for both agriculture and wildlife protection. February brought relentless snowstorms to Clearwater Valley, transforming Sunrise Valley Farm into an ethereal landscape of white-draped fields and ice-crystal forests. Rob Mitchell studied the latest satellite weather data in his newly established wildlife monitoring station, converted from an old grain storage office. The extreme conditions had pushed their conservation systems to their limits, revealing both strengths and areas needing reinforcement. A renowned wildlife behavior expert had arrived from the University of Montana to study the unique adaptations of animals using River's Edge's protected corridors. Her preliminary findings suggested that wildlife was developing sophisticated navigation patterns specific to the human-modified landscape, learning to time their movements with farming activities and weather conditions. This behavioral evolution challenged traditional theories about wildlife adaptation in agricultural settings. Dr. Emily Chen's research team discovered unprecedented levels of cooperation between different species using the winter shelter network. Trail cameras captured footage of diverse animals sharing the heated spaces during severe weather, maintaining peaceful coexistence despite natural predator-prey relationships. The observations suggested that extreme conditions could override typical animal behaviors, leading to temporary alliances for survival. Mike Thompson's innovative snow management system proved crucial during February's intense storms. The network of solar-powered heating elements and wind barriers kept critical wildlife passages accessible even in the worst weather. Other farming communities across the northern states began implementing similar systems, recognizing the importance of maintaining wildlife movement corridors throughout severe winter conditions. Sarah's classroom project expanded into a comprehensive study of wildlife stress responses to extreme weather. Her students used thermal imaging equipment to monitor animal body temperatures and behavior patterns, contributing valuable data to regional wildlife research. The project attracted attention from educational institutions nationwide interested in combining practical conservation work with student learning. Dr. James Cooper's veterinary clinic faced new challenges as winter wildlife injuries increased. His team developed specialized treatments for frostbite and hypothermia in various species, creating protocols that could be implemented in remote locations. The mobile emergency unit proved invaluable during severe weather events, reaching injured animals quickly despite hazardous conditions. The sophisticated monitoring system revealed unexpected patterns in nocturnal wildlife movement. Animals had developed precise schedules for utilizing different sections of the protected corridors, minimizing potential conflicts and maximizing resource use. This natural organization demonstrated remarkable adaptation to human-modified environments. Rob's expertise in winter wildlife protection drew attention from international conservation organizations. His practical approach to solving complex environmental challenges offered fresh perspectives on sustainable agriculture. The resulting collaborations led to improvements in wildlife management techniques across similar climate zones worldwide. The heart of winter tested the community's infrastructure but strengthened their resolve. Farmers worked together to maintain essential wildlife support systems while protecting their agricultural operations. This cooperative effort showcased the evolution of River's Edge from a traditional farming community to a model of environmental stewardship. Sarah initiated a new research project documenting wildlife communication patterns during severe weather. Acoustic monitoring equipment captured complex vocalizations as animals coordinated their movements through the protected corridors. These recordings provided insights into how wildlife adapted their social behaviors to human-modified landscapes. Local businesses continued evolving to support year-round conservation efforts. The town's agricultural supply store developed a specialized department for wildlife protection equipment, while local restaurants sourced ingredients exclusively from wildlife-friendly farms. This economic transformation demonstrated how environmental protection could drive sustainable rural development. Dr. Chen's ongoing monitoring of Aurora's winter adaptation revealed fascinating insights into bear behavior near agricultural areas. The bear's periodic winter activity showed sophisticated understanding of human patterns, avoiding areas of high activity while efficiently utilizing protected resources. Her success story inspired other communities to reconsider their approach to wildlife management. The winter warning system incorporated artificial intelligence to predict and prevent potential conflicts. Advanced algorithms analyzed weather patterns, animal movements, and farming activities to generate real-time recommendations for both wildlife protection and agricultural operations. This integration of technology with practical experience created more effective conservation strategies. Mike Thompson's latest innovation involved using geothermal energy to maintain critical wildlife passages. Underground heat exchangers kept key corridor sections free from ice and snow, providing reliable paths for animal movement during severe weather. The sustainable heating system attracted attention from environmental engineers studying climate-resilient infrastructure. Rob's daily inspections revealed the resilience of their wildlife protection network. Despite brutal conditions, animals continued using the protected corridors effectively, demonstrating the success of their conservation approach. Each observation provided valuable insights for improving their systems and adapting to changing conditions. The community's emergency response capabilities expanded to include specialized winter rescue operations. Trained volunteers stood ready to assist wildlife during severe weather events, using equipment and protocols developed through practical experience. This preparation proved crucial during February's unprecedented storms. Dr. Cooper's veterinary team pioneered new treatments for cold weather wildlife injuries. Their research into animal recovery patterns during winter rehabilitation led to improved survival rates for severely injured wildlife. The clinic's success attracted veterinary students interested in specialized wildlife care. February's extreme weather brought unexpected species to their protected corridors as animals sought refuge from harsh conditions. The community adjusted their conservation strategies to accommodate these temporary visitors, demonstrating the flexibility and effectiveness of their wildlife management approach. International researchers continued studying River's Edge's unique approach to winter wildlife protection. Their analysis highlighted the innovative integration of traditional farming practices with modern conservation techniques. The resulting publications brought global recognition to their achievements in sustainable agriculture. Sarah's students expanded their citizen science project to include detailed studies of winter wildlife behavior. Their observations contributed to a growing database of animal adaptation strategies in agricultural settings. The project engaged the entire community while advancing scientific understanding of wildlife conservation. The severe winter conditions revealed unexpected benefits of their wildlife protection efforts. Natural predator populations helped control winter-active pest species, while diverse wildlife activity contributed to soil health through various ecological interactions. These discoveries reinforce the value of maintaining wildlife presence in agricultural areas. Rob's evening rounds provided crucial data about wildlife adaptation to extreme conditions. Each inspection revealed new insights into animal behavior during severe weather, from efficient use of heated shelters to coordinated movement patterns through protected corridors. These observations guided continuous improvements to their conservation systems. The winter months tested the durability of their wildlife protection infrastructure while showcasing its effectiveness. Animals navigated the modified landscape with increasing confidence, utilizing the network of shelters and passages. Despite challenging conditions, each successful interaction between farming operations and wildlife validated their conservation approach. As February progressed, River's Edge hosted an international symposium on winter wildlife management in agricultural settings. The event combined theoretical knowledge with practical demonstrations, allowing participants to observe their successful integration of farming and wildlife protection. Their model inspired other communities to adopt similar approaches to conservation. The evening light faded early, but the community's dedication to wildlife protection remained strong. Each day brought new evidence of their success, from tracks in the snow to thermal images of animals using heated shelters. The systems they had built continued protecting both agricultural interests and wildlife needs through the harshest conditions. Rob's final check of the day revealed fresh signs of wildlife activity along the protected corridors. Even in the depths of winter, animals moved confidently through designated pathways, demonstrating the effectiveness of their conservation measures. The sight reinforced his belief in the lasting impact of their efforts. The transformation of River's Edge from a traditional farming community to a model of winter wildlife conservation continued evolving, driven by necessity and innovation. Their story offered hope to other communities facing similar challenges, showing how human ingenuity and compassion could create sustainable solutions for both agriculture and wildlife protection. Late February painted Clearwater Valley in subtle shades of change as winter's iron grip began showing the first signs of weakening. Rob Mitchell stood at the edge of Sunrise Valley Farm's eastern field, watching the sunrise illuminate patches of exposed earth where drifted snow had started to recede. The morning air still carried winter's bite, but hints of the coming transition whispered through the protected wildlife corridors that now defined the landscape. A groundbreaking study from the National Wildlife Federation had selected River's Edge as its primary research site for examining successful wildlife adaptation to agricultural environments during seasonal transitions. Researchers established sophisticated monitoring stations throughout the valley, capturing data about animal behavior as winter slowly released its hold on the land. Their preliminary findings suggested that wildlife demonstrated remarkable flexibility in adjusting their patterns to match the gradual environmental changes. Dr. Emily Chen arrived with exciting news about a revolutionary tracking system she had developed based on observations of animal movement through rivers' edges protected corridors. The technology combined traditional wildlife monitoring methods with artificial intelligence, creating predictive models that could help other communities establish effective wildlife protection networks. Her team's work promised to transform how agricultural regions approached conservation. The late winter period brought unique challenges to their wildlife management systems. Mike Thompson engineered adaptive barriers that could automatically adjust to changing weather conditions, ensuring wildlife passages remained accessible as freeze-thaw cycles created hazardous conditions. His innovations caught the attention of agricultural engineers studying climate-resilient infrastructure development. Sarah's classroom evolved into a regional center for environmental education as her students documented the subtle signs of seasonal transition. Their detailed observations of wildlife behavior during this critical period contributed to a broader understanding of how animals adapted to changing conditions in human-modified landscapes. The project connected them with research institutions across the country, expanding their impact beyond the local community. Dr. James Cooper's veterinary clinic pioneered new treatment protocols for wildlife affected by unstable weather conditions. His team developed specialized care methods that accounted for the unique challenges animals faced during seasonal transitions. These techniques spread to other rural veterinary practices, improving survival rates for wildlife requiring medical intervention during vulnerable periods. The advanced camera network revealed fascinating patterns in animal behavior as winter began to loosen its grip. Wildlife showed sophisticated understanding of how to utilize the protected corridor's various features, adapting their movements to take advantage of changing conditions. These observations provided valuable insights into animal intelligence and adaptability. Rob's expertise in managing wildlife protection systems through seasonal transitions earned recognition from conservation organizations worldwide. His practical solutions, developed through careful observation and innovative thinking, offered new perspectives on maintaining effective wildlife corridors in agricultural settings. The resulting collaborations led to improvements in conservation practices across similar climate zones. The shifting weather patterns tested the community's infrastructure, but also validated their methods. Farmers coordinated their late winter activities to support wildlife movement through rapidly changing conditions while maintaining essential agricultural operations. This careful balance demonstrated the evolution of their understanding about coexistence with nature. Sarah initiated a comprehensive study of wildlife communication during seasonal transitions. Specialized equipment captured complex interactions between different species as they navigated changing environmental conditions. These observations challenged traditional assumptions about animal behavior and social structures. Local businesses adapted to support conservation efforts through the challenging transition period. Agricultural suppliers developed specialized equipment for maintaining wildlife corridors during freeze-thaw cycles, while technology companies created software for monitoring rapidly changing conditions. This economic adaptation showed how environmental protection could drive rural innovation. Dr. Chen's monitoring system detected intriguing patterns in Aurora's behavior as winter began to wane. The bear showed sophisticated understanding of how to utilize different corridor features as conditions changed, demonstrating remarkable adaptation to the human-modified landscape. Her success continued inspiring other communities to reconsider their approach to wildlife management. The warning system incorporated new features designed specifically for tracking rapid environmental changes. Advanced sensors monitored ground conditions, weather patterns, and wildlife movement, providing real-time data to help maintain safe passages through shifting conditions. This technological integration enhanced their ability to protect wildlife during vulnerable periods. Mike Thompson's latest innovation involved using thermal mapping to identify and maintain critical wildlife passages during freeze-thaw cycles. The system helped prevent dangerous ice formation while ensuring animals could move safely through protected corridors. Other farming communities began adopting similar approaches, recognizing the importance of maintaining wildlife movement during seasonal transitions. Rob's daily inspections revealed the effectiveness of their adaptive management strategies. Wildlife continued utilizing protected passages despite challenging conditions, demonstrating the resilience of both the animals and the conservation infrastructure. Each observation provided valuable insights for improving their systems. The community's emergency response capabilities expanded to include specialized teams for handling wildlife affected by rapidly changing conditions. Volunteers received advanced training in recognizing and addressing challenges specific to seasonal transitions. This preparation proved crucial as winter slowly released its grip on the valley. Dr. Cooper's veterinary team developed new treatments for injuries caused by unstable ground conditions and changing weather patterns. Their research into animal recovery during seasonal transitions led to improved rehabilitation techniques for wildlife. The clinic became a training center for veterinarians interested in specialized transitional care. The late winter period brought unexpected species to their protected corridors as animals began early seasonal movements. The community adjusted their conservation strategies to accommodate these visitors, demonstrating the flexibility of their wildlife management approach. Each successful adaptation strengthened their commitment to protecting all wildlife. International researchers continued studying River's Edge's unique approach to wildlife protection during seasonal transitions. Their analysis highlighted the innovative integration of traditional farming practices with modern conservation techniques. The resulting publications brought global attention to their achievements in sustainable agriculture. Zara students expanded their citizen science project to include detailed studies of wildlife behavior during environmental transitions. Their observations contributed to a growing database of animal adaptation strategies in agricultural settings. The project engaged the entire community while advancing scientific understanding of wildlife conservation. The changing conditions revealed unexpected benefits of their wildlife protection efforts. Natural predator-prey relationships helped control emerging pest populations, while diverse wildlife activity contributed to soil health through various ecological interactions. These discoveries reinforced the value of maintaining wildlife presence in agricultural areas. Rob's evening rounds provided crucial data about wildlife adaptation to changing conditions. Each inspection revealed new insights into animal behavior during seasonal transitions, from efficient use of sheltered areas to coordinated movement patterns through protected corridors. These observations guided continuous improvements to their conservation systems. The late winter period tested the adaptability of their wildlife protection infrastructure while showcasing its effectiveness. Animals navigated the changing landscape with increasing confidence, utilizing the network of shelters and passages despite challenging conditions. Each successful interaction between farming operations and wildlife validated their conservation approach. As March approached, River's Edge hosted a symposium on managing wildlife protection systems through seasonal transitions. The event combined theoretical knowledge with practical demonstrations, allowing participants to observe their successful integration of farming and wildlife conservation. Their model inspired other communities to adopt similar approaches to environmental protection. The evening light lingered slightly longer each day, but the community's dedication to wildlife protection remained constant. Each day brought new evidence of their success, from tracks in the melting snow to thermal images of animals using adapted shelters. The systems they had built continued protecting both agricultural interests and wildlife needs through changing conditions. Rob's final check of the day revealed fresh signs of wildlife activity along the protected corridors. Even during this challenging transition period, animals moved confidently through designated pathways, demonstrating the effectiveness of their conservation measures. The sight reinforced his belief in the lasting impact of their efforts. The transformation of River's Edge from a traditional farming community to a model of adaptive wildlife conservation continued evolving, driven by necessity and innovation. Their story offered hope to other communities facing similar challenges, showing how human ingenuity and compassion could create sustainable solutions for both agriculture and wildlife protection. March arrived in Clearwater Valley with gentle persistence, bringing warmth that slowly transformed the landscape of Sunrise Valley Farm. Rob Mitchell walked the thawing perimeter of his property at dawn, noting how patches of green began emerging through melting snow. The wildlife corridors, which had proved so crucial during the harsh winter months, now faced new challenges as seasonal migrations began stirring throughout the region. A prestigious environmental foundation had dispatched their lead research team to study the unique dynamics of wildlife movement during the spring transition period. Their sophisticated monitoring equipment dotted the landscape, capturing intricate data about how animals adapted their behavior as the season shifted. The preliminary findings suggested that River's Edge's conservation model provided unprecedented support for wildlife during this vulnerable period. Dr. Emily Chen's latest research focused on mapping the complex network of animal communication that emerged during seasonal transitions. Her team discovered that different species shared information about safe passages and available resources through subtle behavioral cues. This revolutionary understanding of interspecies cooperation challenged traditional views about wildlife behavior in agricultural settings. The early spring thaw demanded innovative solutions to maintain the integrity of their wildlife protection systems. Mike Thompson developed a network of adaptive drainage channels that prevented flooding in critical corridor areas while preserving natural movement patterns. His design caught the attention of environmental engineers studying climate-resilient infrastructure development. Sarah's classroom transformed into a hub for studying spring wildlife behavior patterns. Her students used advanced tracking technology to document how different species emerged from winter dormancy and began utilizing the protected corridors. Their observations contributed valuable data to a national study examining wildlife adaptation to human-modified landscapes. Dr. James Cooper's veterinary clinic established specialized protocols for treating wildlife affected by rapidly changing environmental conditions. His team pioneered rehabilitation techniques that accounted for the unique challenges animals faced during seasonal transitions. The clinic became a model for rural veterinary practices dealing with wildlife emergencies. The sophisticated camera network revealed fascinating patterns as hibernating species began stirring. Bears, including Aurora, showed remarkable awareness of human activity patterns as they emerged, utilizing the protected corridors with precise timing to avoid contact while accessing essential resources. These observations provided valuable insights into wildlife intelligence, Rob's expertise in managing the spring transition period attracted attention from international conservation organizations. His practical approaches to maintaining effective wildlife passages through rapidly changing conditions offered fresh perspectives on sustainable agriculture. The resulting collaborations sparked innovations in wildlife protection across similar bioregions. The changing season tested their infrastructure, but validated their methods. Farmers coordinated their early spring activities to support wildlife movement while preparing for the growing season. This careful orchestration demonstrated how deeply the community had integrated conservation into their agricultural practices. Sarah initiated a groundbreaking study examining how wildlife adapted their social structures during seasonal transitions. Advanced acoustic monitoring equipment captured complex communication patterns between different species as they navigated the changing landscape. These discoveries challenged established theories about animal behavior in agricultural settings. Local businesses evolved to support the unique challenges of spring wildlife protection. Agricultural suppliers developed specialized equipment for maintaining corridor integrity during the thaw, while technology firms created software for monitoring rapidly changing conditions. This economic adaptation showed how environmental stewardship could drive rural innovation. Dr. Chen's monitoring system detected sophisticated patterns in wildlife behavior as spring approached. Animals demonstrated remarkable ability to anticipate and adapt to changing conditions, utilizing different features of the protected corridors as needed. Their success validated the community's comprehensive approach to wildlife conservation. The warning system incorporated new capabilities designed specifically for tracking spring wildlife movement. Advanced sensors monitored ground conditions, weather patterns, and animal activity, providing real-time data to help prevent conflicts during this dynamic period. This technological integration enhanced their ability to protect both wildlife and agricultural interests. Mike Thompson's latest innovation involved using thermal imaging to identify emerging wildlife patterns during the spring transition. The system helped predict and prevent potential conflicts while ensuring animals could move safely through protected areas. Other farming communities began adopting similar approaches, recognizing the importance of proactive wildlife management. Rob's daily inspections revealed the effectiveness of their adaptive conservation strategies. Wildlife continued utilizing protected passages despite rapidly changing conditions, demonstrating the resilience of both the animals and the infrastructure. Each observation provided valuable insights for improving their systems. The community's emergency response capabilities expanded to include specialized teams for handling spring wildlife emergencies. Volunteers received advanced training in managing situations unique to the seasonal transition period. This preparation proved crucial as animal activity increased throughout the valley. Dr. Cooper's veterinary team developed new treatments for injuries related to changing environmental conditions. Their research into animal recovery during spring transitions led to improved rehabilitation techniques for wildlife. The clinic's success attracted veterinary professionals interested in specialized seasonal care. The early spring period brought new species to their protected corridors as migration patterns shifted. The community adjusted their conservation strategies to accommodate these temporary visitors, demonstrating the flexibility of their wildlife management approach. Each successful adaptation strengthened their commitment to protecting all wildlife. International researchers continued studying River's Edge's unique approach to spring wildlife protection. Their analysis highlighted the innovative integration of traditional farming practices with modern conservation techniques. The resulting publications brought global recognition to their achievements in sustainable agriculture. Sarah's students expanded their citizen science project to include detailed studies of spring wildlife behavior. Their observations contributed to a growing database of animal adaptation strategies in agricultural settings. The project engaged the entire community while advancing scientific understanding of wildlife conservation. The changing season revealed unexpected benefits of their wildlife protection efforts. Natural predator-prey relationships helped control emerging pest populations, while diverse wildlife activity contributed to soil health through various ecological interactions. These discoveries reinforced the value of maintaining wildlife presence in agricultural areas. Rob's evening rounds provided crucial data about wildlife adaptation to spring conditions. Each inspection revealed new insights into animal behavior during seasonal transitions, from efficient use of sheltered areas to coordinated movement patterns through protected corridors. These observations guided continuous improvements to their conservation systems. The early spring period tested the adaptability of their wildlife protection infrastructure while showcasing its effectiveness. Animals navigated the changing landscape with increasing confidence, utilizing the network of shelters and passages despite challenging conditions. Each successful interaction between farming operations and wildlife validated their conservation approach. As March progressed, River's Edge hosted a symposium on managing wildlife protection systems through spring transitions. The event combined theoretical knowledge with practical demonstrations, allowing participants to observe their successful integration of farming and wildlife conservation. Their model inspired other communities to adopt similar approaches to environmental protection. The lengthening daylight brought new energy to their conservation efforts, while the community's dedication to wildlife protection remained unwavering. Each day brought new evidence of their success, from tracks in the muddy soil to thermal images of animals using adapted shelters. The systems they had built continued protecting both agricultural interests and wildlife needs through changing conditions. Rob's final check of the day revealed fresh signs of wildlife activity along the protected corridors. Even during this challenging transition period, animals moved confidently through designated pathways, demonstrating the effectiveness of their conservation measures. The sight reinforced his belief in the lasting impact of their efforts. 1 year had passed since that fateful October morning when an injured bear sought refuge at Sunrise Valley Farm. Rob Mitchell stood at the edge of his property, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of amber and gold. The landscape before him had transformed beyond recognition, not just in its physical features, but in the very spirit of the community it represented. A major wildlife conservation summit had chosen River's Edge as its showcase example of successful human-wildlife coexistence. Delegates from across the globe walked the sophisticated network of wildlife corridors that now connected the valley's farms, studying how this small Idaho town had revolutionized the relationship between agriculture and conservation. The transformation had exceeded even the most optimistic expectations. Dr. Emily Chen's final research report revealed extraordinary findings about wildlife adaptation in agricultural settings. The study documented unprecedented levels of cooperative behavior between different species, sophisticated use of protected pathways, and remarkable intelligence in navigating human-modified landscapes. These discoveries challenged fundamental assumptions about wildlife behavior and opened new frontiers in conservation science. The success of their wildlife protection system had sparked a revolution in agricultural practices nationwide. Mike Thompson's innovations in corridor design and maintenance became standard features in agricultural engineering courses. Universities sent students to River's Edge for hands-on experience in implementing wildlife-friendly farming techniques. The small farming community had become an outdoor classroom for the future of sustainable agriculture. Sarah's environmental education program expanded into a comprehensive curriculum adopted by schools across the country. Her students' research contributed to scientific understanding of wildlife behavior in agricultural settings, earning recognition from major conservation organizations. The program created a new generation of environmental stewards who understood the delicate balance between farming and wildlife protection. Dr. James Cooper's veterinary clinic evolved into a regional center for wildlife medicine, combining traditional livestock care with innovative wildlife treatment protocols. The facility hosted veterinary students from around the world, sharing the unique insights gained from treating wildlife in agricultural settings. Their success stories demonstrated the possibility of providing professional medical care to wild animals while respecting their natural behaviors. The sophisticated monitoring system had captured a year's worth of extraordinary wildlife footage, documenting the successful integration of various species into the protected corridor network. Aurora, the bear whose injury had sparked this transformation, became a symbol of hope for wildlife conservation. Her successful adaptation to life in the agricultural landscape proved that compassion could bridge the gap between wild and cultivated spaces. Rob's expertise in wildlife-friendly farming practices earned him invitations to speak at international conferences on sustainable agriculture. His practical approach to conservation resonated with farming communities worldwide, inspiring similar initiatives across diverse agricultural regions. The methods developed at Sunrise Valley Farm became blueprints for wildlife protection in rural areas globally. The economic impact of their conservation efforts surprised even the most optimistic supporters. River's Edge transformed into a destination for ecotourism, with visitors coming to observe wildlife using the protected corridors. Local businesses thrived, creating a sustainable model of rural development that balanced agricultural productivity with environmental protection. Sarah's research into wildlife communication patterns yielded groundbreaking insights into animal intelligence. Her team discovered complex information sharing between different species using the corridor network, suggesting levels of interspecies cooperation previously unknown to science. These findings revolutionized understanding of wildlife adaptation to human-modified environments. Local businesses had completely reimagined their roles in supporting conservation efforts. Agricultural suppliers developed specialized equipment for maintaining wildlife corridors, while technology companies created software for monitoring animal movement patterns. This economic transformation demonstrated how environmental protection could drive rural innovation and prosperity. Dr. Chen's monitoring of Aurora's progress revealed fascinating long-term adaptation patterns. The bear had established a territory that intelligently utilized the protected corridor network, demonstrating sophisticated understanding of human activity patterns. Her success story inspired other communities to reconsider their approach to wildlife management. The warning system incorporated artificial intelligence to predict and prevent potential conflicts between farming operations and wildlife movement. Advanced algorithms analyzed patterns of animal behavior, weather conditions, and agricultural activities to optimize the timing of various farming operations. This technological integration enhanced their ability to protect both wildlife and agricultural interests. Mike Thompson's final innovation involved creating a self-sustaining network of wildlife passages that required minimal human intervention. The system automatically adjusted to changing conditions while providing safe passage for various species. Other farming communities began adopting these designs, recognizing their effectiveness in promoting wildlife conservation. Rob's daily inspections revealed the lasting impact of their conservation efforts. Wildlife moved confidently through the protected corridors, demonstrating complete adaptation to the modified landscape. Each observation confirmed the success of their approach to wildlife protection in agricultural settings. The community's commitment to wildlife conservation had become deeply embedded in local culture. Regular educational programs, wildlife, observation events and conservation workshops brought residents together in celebration of their unique relationship with nature. This cultural transformation ensured the longevity of their conservation efforts. Dr. Cooper's veterinary team established new standards for wildlife care in agricultural settings. Their protocols for treating injured animals while maintaining their wild nature became models for rural veterinary practices worldwide. The clinic's success demonstrated the possibility of providing professional medical care while respecting wildlife's natural behaviors. The protected corridors had evolved into complex ecosystems supporting diverse wildlife populations. Natural predator-prey relationships helped control agricultural pests, while animal activity contributed to soil health through various ecological interactions. These benefits convinced other farming communities to adopt similar conservation measures. International researchers continued studying River's Edge's unique approach to wildlife conservation. Their analyses highlighted how traditional farming practices could be modified to support wildlife protection without sacrificing agricultural productivity. The resulting publications influenced agricultural policy worldwide. Sarah's students conducted the final phase of their year-long wildlife observation project. Their documentation of animal behavior patterns contributed valuable data to scientific understanding of wildlife adaptation in agricultural settings. The project's success inspired similar initiatives in other rural schools. The changing seasons revealed the resilience of their wildlife protection systems. Animals confidently navigated the network of protected corridors throughout the year, demonstrating complete adaptation to the modified landscape. Each successful interaction between farming operations and wildlife validated their conservation approach. Rob's evening rounds provided moments of reflection on their journey. The transformation of River's Edge from a traditional farming community to a model of wildlife conservation exceeded all expectations. Their story offered hope to other communities facing similar challenges. As the sun set on another day in River's Edge, the legacy of their compassion continued growing. The decision to help one injured bear had sparked a movement that transformed not just their community, but the very relationship between agriculture and wildlife conservation. Their success showed how human ingenuity and compassion could create lasting positive change. Want to discover more incredible stories of hope and transformation? Up next, you've got two more inspiring tales waiting for you right here. These extraordinary journeys of courage and compassion will warm your heart just like this one did. Don't miss out. Click to watch them now.